right, everyone, welcome. That was a new and fresh style to open the show, but this is still the Talking Ass. I'm still Danny, but today we're honored to have a long-time veteran of the electronic and techno music industry, and whatever name you give it, we'll talk about that too. Max Pashm, welcome.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So that song there that we just heard was Queen of Sikim. First of all, what is a Sikim? What language did we just hear? Where in the world was this made, and what decade? Go from the beginning.
Wow. Okay. It was made in 1995. It was recorded in Hove. It's a traditional Cretan melody that I used to hear when I lived in Crete when I was 16, 17. And Sikim is a country, a very small country in the Himalayas. And I happened to be going out with a lady who was originally from there, her family. So it was kind of a belated love song, and I put it together. But the words are in Greek, but I actually speak Greek. We were just trying to get a Greek feel and a vibe in the studio. So half of it was made up. It was just like pure expressive kind of. Anyway, I only hit the top of the Greek charts. It was number 2, and I at first I was like, "Oh no, this is awful," but my Greek friends were like, "No, it's great. People love it," you know.
So it's like what Sacha Baron Cohen did in the first Borat movie, where to speak Kazakh, one of them speaking fluent Hebrew and the other one speaking just made up gibberish.
Yeah, but it's definitely a bit of that. But nonetheless, it's probably over the decades, it's the most popular song. It was really different at the time. For a start, no one had done that with Greek music. I'd never heard any Greek music, even with a dance beat, at that point, which was, well, it was recorded in 95, but it was released by Sony in May 97, and they pushed it really hard. And along with another song off the same album, they both did really well in both Greece and Israel. And that was kind of my aim, because they were my two countries that I'd spent time in.
Interesting. You know, I saw this phrase on the internet. I wanted to test it out, whether you'd be offended. King of falafel techno. Is that something you've heard before?
Yeah, when I got signed to Sony, they kind of asked me to come up with some one-liners for the promo. So as a joke, we didn't think they'd take it up. Me and my manager were like, yeah, King of falafel techno, Hasidic house. And they ended up like releasing a version of Queen of Sikim on vinyl that they called Greek Yiddish house. So it was just bizarre.
Yeah, I'm offended by all of those, by the way, because
I'm glad to hear that.
I'm now listening to your entire production. First of all, calling it techno is insane, or EDM, which is a newer word for the same. Like, I think it's a mix of like world music and cinematic sort of soundtrack music. Mm-hmm. You know what it reminds me of? Some of your early stuff from the 90s is if the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies were actually good movies with some taste, they would have used this.
Oh man, that's a lovely analysis of the vibe. I mean, I used to go to raves and I used to hear music and it was great, and everyone on the dance floor would kind of come and go, I'm going to get in the studio with some producer, I'm going to make a track that goes like that. But I just thought, what if there were ethnic samples? Like, what if there was actually ethnic musicians or traditional musicians playing these amazing ancient melodies? And it just really worked. And I always do write with a cinematic head on. I'm always thinking like I'm in some kind of movie. I have to be immersed by the music. I have to be moved by it. Has to take me somewhere else. And if he does that for other people, that's amazing. But that's coming the bottom line. So you summed that up really well, Danny. Nice one.
I try. I'm not as creative as you, but I'm a good listener. You know.
I'm not sure, but yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, just where did this begin? Because you said you got signed by Sony in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Had you started in the late 80s? When did you start? Because that's a big label to get.
Yeah, I started making music I was at school, but by the time some of the early kind of technology started coming along, like Atari computers in the late 80s, so you could sequence stuff, we started writing dance music like really early on. So yeah, I mean, it really came out of the late 80s, and obviously the house scene really kicked in the UK, and the free party scene, and especially in Brighton and London and Manchester, Bristol, all those places. It was a new thing. It was a completely new era. Rather than everything being tribal, Dance music brought like different football hooligans together that would normally fight. It brought like people from working class backgrounds, aristocratic backgrounds. It didn't matter when you were on the dance floor. It was a leveler. So the music had this vibe as well. Some of it was drug induced, but most of it was really like a young, angry, but really creative spirit at the time in Britain, because we had Margaret Thatcher and a lot of kind of oppression of underground culture, and it came out of that. So it's amazing. I mean, for us, it was like our rock and roll.
Your first time you've figured out that a computer can help you make something awesome here, what was the reception? Who did you play it to? Like, how did the phenomenon even start?
Well, first of all, I remember it was incredibly difficult because obviously there was no internet. You had to have someone to show you how to use it, or you were just going to sit there for months, which is what most people ended up doing. So that was the first thing, to actually be to make it, find the right drums, the right sounds to kind of back everything else up, to make it powerful and stand up with other dance music. So it came out of that. I mean, it was amazing. Most people, to be honest, they were very resistant. Oh, that's not real music. That's made on a computer. Anyone can do that, which really wasn't the case. It really, you had to become basically a producer, which was liberating because you could. There was that kind of punk rock spirit where you could do it yourself. But yeah, I mean, like when we started playing, I mean, my idea was always to mix world music. So we'd get me playing keyboards with some singers and lots of percussion and a couple of didgeridoo players, which at the time was really quite unknown. We'd get them on big towers, scaffolding towers, and we'd mix this music and it would blow people away. And by the time I'd really perfected kind of my craft, it was like 1996, and I was basically making dance music for people that didn't like dance music. They'd come along, hear my stuff, see me singing and playing percussion on top and go, wow, more often than not, this is amazing. So that's kind of how it started. And I just realised it was a niche, not only because I was mixing, obviously, my Jewish roots, the time I'd spent in Greece and various other cultures, but it would really impact people. And that was really amazing. People would come up and say, I don't like dance music, but I really like this.
Yeah, because it is different. It's not just, I don't know when the last time I went to a sort of dance party with mostly electronic music, it was certainly one of those where everybody was high and it was just a beat. Like I couldn't,
yeah.
I'm sure I'm being reductive and a fuzzy daddy, whatever, rockhead, metalhead, but I'm saying there was nothing like what you have going on, which is Greek and Gypsy and Jewish music and all kinds of stuff, right?
A lot of it was the drugs. I mean, you hear people like hippies talking about the 60s, and they always kind of talk about marijuana and LSD and various other kind of mind-bending substances. But what happened with the ecstasy was different, because before you'd always have to be like a hippie or some kind of freak if you were like smoking or going out and getting high. But what happened was half the kids in the country started doing it. There were like 2 million kids every weekend consuming these pills. And rather than like break into fights, people were like not drinking alcohol, drinking too much water, dancing all night and hugging. So yeah. I came into that quite late. I'm going to go into details of my own background on that, but it was like every explosive subculture scene, there were drugs involved.
So for the artists themselves, you're saying, as well? For
the artists, yeah, but actually as an artist, you had to step back from that, because if you were going to be able to write all week in the studio, you couldn't go out and be high and, at the weekend, because people would dance for like 24 hours and then you'd have like a day chilling out and then you'd be like recovering. And so for me, I quickly realised that I wanted to be part of the creative process. I didn't want to be a consumer on the dance floor, drugs or no drugs, So, yeah, that was an assertive choice I made pretty much. Actually, when my dad died in 95, I thought, right, we're all mortal. This is the time to stop talking, shut up and put it out there.
It's inspiring. This track in specific, though, Queen of Sikim, what I said about Tom Cruise movies and stuff kind of dates it, and I didn't mean to do that, but
it's fine.
it has a little bit of a 90s vibe. Do you think it's stood the test of time? Are people still reacting to your early stuff in the way they used to back then?
I mean, to me, it sounds very dated, in a cute kind of way, but nonetheless, it is dated. The recording techniques are different now, but it has a warmth because it was recorded on tape. So, yeah, people do still react to it. But obviously, people that discovered it in the 90s, it really means something to them, and who followed me through my career. I can't honestly say if new people are getting into it. I hope they are. Yeah, the downloads and the streaming keeps going, you know.
Yeah, well, you don't get like daily emails from your agent or a publisher about stats.
No, I get a lot of junk mail.
I should probably do the same. Yeah. I should probably not stare at stats for this thing all the time. I mean, if you don't care, then I'm gonna take a note from your book and not check them every day, you know?
Well, I might appear like I don't care, but you kind of have to care these days. I mean, unfortunately, we all have to analyse, and I don't like. I was saying to a young Jewish singer I know, really talented guy, and he's like obsessed with like Instagram views and, you know, like how many comments and friends, and I was like, yeah, I get that, but actually, it's the music that has to speak. It's not the numbers, and there's different people listening to music in different ways, but yeah, definitely the numbers matter.
At this point in the mid and late 90s, how many people were showing up to your gigs? And do you remember like a memorable big one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started in Brighton. So I started playing. There was a great club in Brighton on Wednesday nights called Energised at a place called The Warehouse. It kind of brought everyone into the subculture in the city would come out on a Wednesday and just go mad at Energised. Banging techno. It was like full on psychedelic. And that was really crowded. And that was the first Pashm gig. We were actually a 3-piece at the time, and we did our first gigs there, and it was absolutely packed. I mean, there's literally people hanging off the balconies, and it was great. So it built up that way, and then, without going into details, I ended up being on my own, thinking kind of that was it, and the band had been booked to go and play in Holland at a place called Oral Festival, and I was like, to this agent, I said, I can't do it. There is no band. Pashm doesn't exist. And he said, no. You're Max Pashm, you're going to Holland, and you're going to do this, otherwise you're going to let me down. So I went over there, and it was amazing. I was playing on like different stages. One stage, there'd be a few thousand people there. Another stage, a few hundred. Then you'd be in a club, there'd be a few hundred, or there'd just be a handful in a bar. And they'd have me going around the island, because it was on one of the Dutch islands called Terschelling. And I'd literally do 3 or 4 gigs a day. So, but I became a bit of a kind of celebrity at the festival because they'd never had any electronic music before, let alone mixed with dance music. So from that, one of the cassettes that I was selling at the time somehow found its way to Sony Music about a year later. So I went from like doing these kind of underground gigs to this festival in Holland, and then suddenly Sony signed me about a year later, flown into Paris, signed, and that was it. I was touring all around Europe. And my music was literally on every major radio station across the continent. You know, it's just the power of like corporate record companies. I mean, it was incredible, you know.
Yeah. Tell us now, honestly, those gigs.
Mm-hmm.
You said there is no band and you just show up. Is it just pressing play at this stage when you're playing live?
Well, I had this thing called a DAT machine, which was a digital cassette machine. They were like 500 quid. Like, this is 95, 96. So what I would do, I'd put this on as a backing track, yeah. But I would sing live and I would play percussion live, and I had a keyboard. So I was like a one-man band with a backing track as my accompaniment, and it just worked. There was a sweet spot between using the technology and playing live over it. So again, it really worked, and Sony tapped into that. Sony were like, "You've got to do that." So that became my show.
Yeah, it's cool. So there's a bit more to it. Is a fair answer, you know. And it depends on the artist, I guess, as well. Some people, some electronic music, they show up with a big band and stuff, right? And drummers, especially, can be live.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Max Pashm band, which I formed in 2006. We basically go out live and we play great traditional ethnic music, whether it's Greek, Jewish, whatever it happens to be, Gypsy. And again, we are using like Ableton Live to trigger loops and stuff. But we've got a live drummer, we've got a Greek bouzouki player, we've got a violinist and horns and guest singers and stuff. So again, it's a sweet spot. You want it to be live, but you want it to have that kind of hypnotic dance vibe as well. So for me, it's always about marrying the old world with the new world, or technology with acoustic instruments. It's that crossover point.
So if we now fast forward to the next song we have here on the list for everyone, it's from another album. This is your biggest one, I believe, based on my research as well. Fight on the Streets. You got any listening notes before we press play?
I have. It was a real labour of love, this one. I almost dumped this track, and then suddenly it just clicked. And all the songs I've released, there's probably only like 3 or 4 that I think, actually, I couldn't have done better. And if I tried any harder, I would have messed it up. So this is one of those songs. I really, really like it. Yeah.
Believe you. Let's go.
Let's go.
We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. In the fields and in the streets.
Never forget it, got to forgive it. Globalistas, you keep on turning. The fire in the belly, keep on burning. You dance to the rhythm, dance to the beat, but you fight on the streets, in the ghetto. Fight on the streets, fight in the ghetto. Twisted sisters, don't give it up for the new fascistas. Don't give it up, don't give it away. Don't remember what the evil rebel said. He said history, it's no mystery. Now I'm machine up the cliff, rhythm with the melody. Dance to the rhythm, dance to the beat, but what you fight on the streets, in the ghetto.
Fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets.
Down in the ghetto, down.
there we go. That was the second song off the list. We're still here with Max Pashm. That one, I thought the Churchill connection, but then also some like Jewish vibes I heard again. What is it trying to say?
It was basically an anti-fascist song. Really liked the idea of mixing world leaders' voices from kind of early part of the 20th century. So there's obviously Churchill. There's some Lenin in the background giving a mad speech in, I think, about 1917 or 18, about halfway through the track. But it's an anti-fascist track. But it was more like, yeah, people say they would have stood up to Nazis or fascists or whoever these crazy people are. But would you actually fight? Or are you just fitting in with the in crowd by saying you would? So it was really kind of a question and a statement all at the same time. But there was something amazing that happened about this song. So obviously I'd sampled the Churchill. Anyway, when the album was released, September 2008, we got invited into BBC Radio 3. And this was the first electronic performance that they'd had there with a band like this. And we asked the broadcaster, which song should we play first? She said, you've got to play Fight on the Streets. Anyway, afterwards, she said, off mic, she said, I'm going to tell you something amazing. She said, underneath where you're standing were the war rooms where Churchill recorded that. And all the hairs on her arms just stood out. I know, it was amazing, you know.
That's extra cool. Wow.
Yeah, it was.
So are the BBC studios still there, you think?
I don't know. I mean, this was the Portland Place studios. I think their studios are still there. I mean, they've since done the extension where you see on the TV with all the modern facade. But, I mean, no, we were in like the depths of Radio 3 broadcasting studios. And yeah, I guess the war rooms were directly underneath us. So, because Churchill obviously used to go and record in the depths of the BBC studios in the safest possible place, but it was a regular thing.
Did you ever get to do Jules Holland?
No. With the British side of stuff, I was really privileged in the fact that I played some really cool rave venues at festivals, and I played a lot of clubs and festivals, obviously. But I didn't get the mainstream exposure that I got across Europe, because my deal with Sony was primarily in France, and they licensed it out to lots of different countries. So pretty much everywhere apart from the UK, I was getting these mainstream gigs, whereas over here I was really deep in the subculture still. But John Peel, who was obviously a renowned, iconic BBC One, Radio 1 original lineup of DJs, he was still doing his late night show every evening in the week. And he used to play my stuff a lot. And I mean, I grew up along with my whole generation listening to John Peel with the transistor radio under my pillow, you know, like through the late 70s, early 80s. And that's where we heard our music. So for me, I'd kind of made it in my head. That was good enough for me, really. I mean, obviously it's never enough, but I was so happy to get that kind of recognition. And it just spurs you on creatively, because you think, yeah, I'm doing something right. I might be doing a lot of things wrong, but as long as I get that little bit right, it hits the spot.
Yeah. I wonder, like, why it was still in this subculture in the UK. This is a uniquely British thing, like garage or garage and techno, electronic music, or basement and industrial music of all kinds is very British. Of course, it's very German as well, I guess, Kraftwerk and Rammstein and all that, but it's very German as well, but it's definitely also very British. So I wonder why they were being so snooty and upper class about the whole thing.
But it's really interesting. I mean, I actually squatted in Germany in the 80s, spent a lot of time on the underground scene there, and of course in the UK and London as well. And there was when we were kids, the pubs used to shut at basically 11 o'clock. They'd call last orders at 10:45 and everyone went to the pub. That's what you did. And at the time, nightclubs were places, they were basically meat markets where you'd get beaten up. They weren't nightclubs like we think of them now. But within the UK, I think definitely from the swinging 60s, and probably pre that with rock and roll, there was this subculture. There was this kind of creative frustration. So because people didn't get to stay in bars till the middle of the morning like they could in Europe, I think a lot of people were really, they either got into fights because they drank too much and they were pent up, or they created. I mean, every village had like so many bands in the UK. I mean, you look at British music and the way it's punched above its weight, and the subculture always drove that, you know, it always came from there. And that's why it was cool. And obviously by the time it was on top of the pops and stuff, it would die a death. But there was one explosion after the other, whether it was the hippie scene, the glam scene, the punk scene. And then we all waited. We were like, what's our thing going to be? And it was dance music.
Yeah. Can I ask you about the title of this album is Nevermind the Balkans? And around the same time is an artist I found before I found you. But were they fans of yours, or is it a coincidence? Balkan Beat Box. It also mixes electronic with ethnic music, and an awesome band, by the way, that I've seen live a few times.
Amazing. I mean, I know Uri from Balkan Beat Box. We were actually in Mexico City together, and Vienna. We played a couple of places. They're great guys, and obviously they're Israeli, and I mean, at the time of the Balkan Beat, call it explosion, it really was a fantastic club, gypsy crossover kind of vibe. It was just brilliant, and it attracted a lot of women, and it wasn't like, there wasn't that threatening kind of feeling that you get at a lot of clubs. It was a really open, very happy, joyous scene, and all these Balkan Beat clubs started opening up across Europe. So there was obviously Balkan Beat Box, Chantel, and us. We were kind of the main three, and Balkan Beat Box were much more on the hip hop kind of vibe, whereas we were much. Well, I used to joke we were like the Monty Python of the Balkan scene, because we were quite self-defecating.
Oh, so see, I didn't even know that at all. So both of these names, they come from a scene that existed before the album title and before the band, a Balkan Beat scene.
I guess the first I started seeing of Balkan Beat clubs, a guy called Robert Soko started the Balkan Beat club name, and he was in Berlin, and then they were literally all over Europe. Balkan something, Balkan this, Balkan that, Balkan Fever, Balkan Express. There were so many of them. They were small clubs that would hold between 200-300 up to about 1,000, and they'd become more popular each month, or each time they ran. And these bands would come in and play, and eventually those same bands were coming back to the same cities and playing bigger venues and bigger gigs. And it was an amazing. It was what I'd been waiting for, really, because people were really expressing a craving to hear ethnic music with dance music, not just banging synthetic fast food takeaway stuff, you know?
I love that phrasing. So since this, let's just call it then Balkan scene, dance music was a bit cooler and a bit more artistic and interesting. Any mainstream festivals? And if so, who did you get to meet that was like a wow moment, or share a stage with? Like, were you in the same lineup with, I don't know, the Rolling Stones suddenly at some point?
No, I did have the same agent as the Rolling Stones, a lady called Solstice. Close enough in Switzerland. In fact, no, that's point in case, actually, because I played a festival over there called Paleo Festival, and it's there, Glastonbury. It's on just off Lake Geneva, and it's the most incredible festival. It's a big site, and at least a third of the site is for staff. And the staff backstage is like a whole town, and it's all lit up by fairy lights across little bridges. So that was an amazing festival. I think I played to about 7,000 there, and that was broadcast live on Swiss radio, which was great. That would have been, I think, 98, maybe 97, 98. And they were like, you'd look out from where I was playing on this stage, and you'd see these just across outside the marquee, you'd see these double-decker champagne buses with all these people just sitting there and drinking. It was just a great moment, and it was very different from where I'd come from. But I played a lot of, because I had the deal in France with Sony, because the deal was based there. They sent me all over France, and I was playing like major venues. I even played the Bataclan, you know, the place where the massacre was. So I played there. I've been really privileged because obviously being signed to Sony, they played the Sony Ball and various other things. And We even did a session up at the Israeli consulate in '97. So, because they really pushed my Jewish heritage hard, with lots of Greek sprinkled on top.
Yeah. Oh, it was for them, it was like a diversity bonanza, right?
Yeah, it was. And also the guy that had signed me, I'm still friends with him now, Christoph Thomas. He just loved it. He genuinely loved the music. So it was this big corporate company, well, they were the biggest label in the world at the time, but this really cool guy running a sub label within Sony. But so he still is, I think, a big Superman fan. So he came in and he set up this sub label called Krypton Records, which was part of Sony Columbia. So each floor at the Paris building, the main HQ, there was basically a different label. And I was on the Sony Columbia floor. And I remember walking down the first day when we'd signed the deal, it's like pictures of all my heroes. There's Bob Dylan, there's Leonard Cohen, and it's just like, oh, this is amazing, until you realise there's no royalties.
Yeah. All right, but before we go into the next one of the same album, quickly though, money-wise, you mentioned, so do you think in retrospect you were screwed over then by record executives, or do you think it's worse now?
Well, I don't know. It was a different style of screwed over. I mean, you can go all the way back to, Jamaican artists who were paid pittance to be on the big hit record in Kingston. It'd be out that night and it would be earning the producer and the label a small fortune. And the artists just be happy to have a bit of food and something to smoke for the night. So in a sense, I was very lucky. I signed a licensing deal. So I got all my rights back after 5 years. And the amount of exposure I got from them, I mean, you couldn't buy it. So it was amazing. But I soon realised that, they'd fly me over to Paris and say, bring your friends. There'd be champagne when we arrived. We'd be in lovely hotels. And after about 3 months, I said to one of the guys, I said, who's paying for this? And he was like, you are. And that's kind of when the penny dropped. You realise, oh my goodness, I mean, this is 97. They're spending like 30K. On promo, which was a lot of money, and to rake those kind of royalties back, you had to sell a lot of CDs, which wasn't difficult at the time. So, yes, ripped off in one sense, but I walked into it with my eyes quite wide open, and I came out the other end, and it was just at the time iTunes launched. So I was like, I'm going to put my music on there, like the day I got it back. So for me, I don't have any regrets. I really don't. Obviously, with the second album, that was a different thing. We licensed it ourselves mainly, and that was much more enabling for my own creativity. I had a great manager at the time, Felix Hines. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. So the Nevermind the Balkan, I've kind of jumped, haven't I, from the first album back to the second album, but a lot happened in between that. But they obviously, one dot joins to the other. So, yeah, that Balkan Beat scene, though, was really, really brilliant. And bands like Balkan Beat Box, I mean, I remember seeing Balkan Beat Box at a show. We played with them in Vienna, and it was at the King's Racecourse. And there's, I don't know how many, thousands of people there. And it was just the most amazing, amazing music, You've got these gypsy horns, and everyone's like drinking shots of vodka and dancing and happy. And so it went from me doing my thing in the 90s to suddenly there's a scene, there's a circuit to go on. And of course now ethnic music is two a penny. I mean, you don't have to look very hard to find all this kind of global fusion stuff, which for me on one level is amazing. And another level, some of it's can be a bit insipid, especially with AI.
Yeah. All right. Let's play this one. And to get to that next, that's a fun one. Rembatelli, anything to say before we press play here?
Yeah, so the clue's in the name. So obviously Rembetiko, for people that don't know, is basically the Greek blues. When the Greek immigrants came over from Asia Minor in the sort of early 20th century, mainly in the 20s, they settled in Piraeus, the port of Athens, and they would play this music. And it was basically, you'd go with your grandfather to the Café Neon, and you'd smoke the hookah, you'd smoke the hashish, and you'd drink your raki, and they'd play these songs. Sad, but ecstatic. So we mixed two types of Greek music. It was rembetiko and chiftateli. Chiftateli is belly dance.
Yes, I can hear a lot of that. Yeah.
And this song's actually about, it's kind of ironic. I'll tell you one in a minute, but this song's about a guy, basically, he's never going to get married. His love is the music, and he's only married to the music. He doesn't need any company. So that's the story of the song. And that's the way I felt at the time. But it's also at this point that I met my wife when I was writing the track. So it's kind of ironic because I ended up marrying her, obviously. There you go.
Cool. Let's play. Excellent. That was Rembatelli there. I'd love to stay in this era of your career for longer, but you did tease us with AI right before we play that song, and we do have to get some, I don't know, anger or frustration out of you about that. But you do have an AI project as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I only started doing this about literally within the last month. I mean, I've been using certain technology within Logic Pro that I use and plugins that have very basic AI DNA. But to actually go onto a platform, I won't mention the name, and put in your prompts, and suddenly out comes this music that would take me months to write. It's mind-blowing and terrifying, as it is for many people in whichever field of work they're in. And you just realise within 2 minutes it's come up with an arrangement, in-depth melodies, amazing production, and it's finished. It's just, but it's still AI, So for me, it's actually really useful if you use it as part of the creative process. So if you're like struggling for a melody, or you're looking for something else, or even a different genre for a song to work in, you can take ideas from it. You can relearn melodies. You can do it that way and basically reproduce it in a human way. And it's just a small but important part of a composition. But when you go to the other extreme and you're generating basically 100% AI, that's something completely different. For me, that's interesting as well as terrifying. It's interesting from a DJ perspective because obviously, I DJ. So I can actually, with AI, I can design parts of my DJ set to be tracks so that no one's going to Shazam. They're not going to know what they are. And that was part of the joy in the 90s. DJs didn't tell you what they were playing. You had to find out, or you had to stand behind them and lean over them, and they put their shoulder over the record sleeves and the labels. So that's cool.
Why?
That's cool.
Why?
Why? Well, for instance, there was a club in Worthing, and the DJs from there, this is like really probably 88, they would drive up to Edinburgh to buy one tune and drive back again, because there's only one copy of that record in the UK, because it's probably been brought over from Detroit, or people would go over to Detroit or New York and buy these records. So there was that kind of mystique, and you'd think, DJs are a bit up themselves, but you had to work really hard to find out a track sometimes if it wasn't a pop hit. So for me, integrating that maybe within DJ sets is acceptable up to a point, but it is frightening. It is frightening.
It's I don't know. I have this thought experiment. Like, I know that on the country charts, especially, which I don't know. I guess it says something about country music that AI has excelled there. Something about simple, repeatable song structures or whatever. I don't know. But when you hear something and you might really, really enjoy it, and then you look up the artist, if it is AI, how many people then go back and press play again? That would be an interesting percentage to find out.
That's really interesting.
Instinctively, AI can be amazing, and it can hold notes for infinity because it doesn't have lungs. So, yeah. But will you go back? Like, I can imagine opera AI could just hold notes forever. It would be incredible, but.
I mean, now I've used it a little bit, I think I can recognize it. It's too perfect. It's too polished. And you can kind of hear it cutting corners in some places or making little mistakes, but obviously that's going to be ironed out anytime. So it is really scary. But I think, these things seem terrifying to us, the fact that there might be 10 billion robots on our streets by 2040, but actually human beings adapt. And what seems impossible to fathom now, in 2040, if that's normal, then we adapt as human beings, don't we? Especially Jewish ones.
Throw them in the canal is one way people have been adapting to delivery robots and such.
Not a bad idea. I mean, you'd have to drop a few nukes on Tesla plants, wouldn't you, to kind of slow it down? So, yeah, who knows where it's all leading? I'm trying to. I mean, it's not something like the internet that you can keep up with. Obviously, it's just impossible. But it does, to me, feel like almost like the pinnacle of humanity. Like, we've become so clever, we've invented something that's ultimately cleverer than us and very dangerous. And that's where I think it's a stark choice. You're either an atheist or you have some faith. And for me, I have some faith. I just think if there's not going to be some kind of divine intervention, if we haven't reached some pinnacle, then what's it all about? It would be very depressing. So, I mean, especially from a Jewish perspective, it really feels like something's coming to a head, especially within our people and our history and the way things have changed. And I mention being Jewish because it's very important. Obviously, we're here in the UK, and it's gone from being a really safe haven for Jewish people for hundreds of years to being, well, it feels like we're on the front line. I mean, I don't want to offend our Israeli brothers and sisters who really are on the front line, but there are different kind of front lines. And yeah, so that's where I kind of bring faith into it a little bit. And I've actually got a little bit more religious recently, and I'm not like a very religious, but yeah, it's definitely drawn me to kind of looking at the way humanity is developing. It's very interesting.
It is an interesting, to generalize this to others, it is another looming disaster above us on top of the ethnic tension, wars, a looming world war that's already underway, arguably. And yeah, it's another. I don't think it's just your Jewishness. I think that might be universally human.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The timing of the AI revolution is not great when it comes to other things happening right now.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if I was an atheist, I think I'd feel like terrified, but because I'm not, it just feels like the chess pieces being moved around at the right times, and at the times we were told they'd be moved around. So, yeah, it feels like, I mean, what's that Chinese proverb? May we live in interesting times. Well, we really do. And it's an honour to be on the planet anytime, but to be on the planet now, it's equally terrifying and awe-inspiring all at once.
People will study for centuries what our leaders and our populations did in this period. I think I'm with you there.
Who knows?
Related question. I promise there will be more music in a moment. Because you're our first long-form musical guest, and you were a professional artist in this period, related to the AI revolution now with artists and Spotify and how artists' income generation has changed dramatically. You remember when Metallica et al. Sued Napster?
Love Metallica, by the way. I'm a big Metallica fan. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. What's your favorite song?
I think, do you know what? I think it's Nothing Else Matters because it just, I love it.
Because you're a musician. See, that's a musician's answer.
I've got another one though. I love their cover of Thin Lizzy's Whiskey in the Jar. And I even more love their cover, and it's of the punk track, So What? And it's absolutely full of expletives, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. I love that song before I had ever been to those places that they mentioned, and now I quite regularly visit the places that are mentioned in the song. So yeah,
so I reckon that's definitely one of my favourite. Yeah, it's rude and it's like punk, but with Metallica,
because they opened with it in their absolute prime. They opened with it live, so that's why the memory of that song is so strong with fans. With that trial, though, like in retrospect, how right were they? Like, all that noise came out of people burning their records and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, 20 years later, they were so right about everything that this...
Yeah, they just... I mean, they saw it coming. David Bowie saw it coming with the internet. I mean, yeah, and I think that's the thing with AI. So, you asked me about when I started making music. I mean, obviously, all this technology suddenly came out. There were drum machines, there were synths, they'd been there for a few years, but it all came out en masse within the electronic scene. It actually sounded sci-fi. Because the sound was new and it was amazing. So nothing seems to have really changed since that time. I mean, there've been genres and subgenres and variations, but it's still pretty much house music, drum and bass, techno, R&B. But I think with AI, I'd be absolutely amazed if some kind of new sound or genre isn't born out of it, or many genres perhaps, I don't know, because I think it's inevitable. But anyone can say they're a musician or a videographer or probably in a few years a doctor or whatever it happens to be. That's frightening. You know, what are we all going to do?
Yeah, frightening and insanely interesting. Final question about this period in your career before we jump well ahead to the next one, which is newer. In that period when all this, the Balkan beat scene was going on and you were making all this ethnic music that mixed various cultures, also what gained popularity started being new ideas, maybe from the left side of the political map, like cultural appropriation. Was there ever any negative reactions from actual populations whose culture and traditions you were fusing into this new thing? Or was everyone 100% positive that you met?
All I ever had was positive feedback, but I was tapping in not only to my Jewish roots and all the many traditions of music that come with that, but because I lived in Greece a long time, my love of Greek music was really authentic. And, you know, everyone that plays on the music is a maestro in their own right. I'm the bastardos of the setup, really. I'm the guy juggling all the pies. But, you know, I mean, George Caprias, who's played bouzouki with me since 2005, I think, and various other musicians. I mean, they're just maestros in their own right. So I lost the question there a little bit. Sorry, Danny.
That was the answer. Don't worry. It was about...
What was the question anyway? What was it?
I believe whether there was any restlessness among the natives or some other formula.
No, there wasn't. So I just conclude with that. There wasn't. But I guess there could really easily have been if I have sampled Tibetan stuff and North American stuff and try and integrate it by mixing it with other traditions, and it kind of becomes its own sound. But because the main drive of what I did was my tradition, my life, my character, my experiences, I think it gives it an authenticity. And I always say to people, you can give musicians the same tools and they can all come up with something different, but it's the ones that really put their story and their character into the music, and they're not shy to do that and become theatrical with it. I think that's what defines you as an original and authentic musician and songwriter, performer, DJ, whatever it happens to be. And I think that's the thing with AI, coming back to that, because whatever our AI can do, it's not going to be the same going to watch a band full of robots. People are still going to want to watch human beings. And those human beings are going to be watched because people love what they do, who they are, the characters they are on stage. And so that's where my hope kind of lies. I know it's the hope that kills you, but I really believe that people will still want a human contact.
Oh. Here we're jumping way ahead, and because of what you said, where you're bringing yourself into the music, I can hear it. So the new album called Sounds from the Fluffy Underbelly, which is a very cool album title, by the way. This track, Sophia, but also more generally on the album, but we're going to listen to Sophia now. I have to say, I can hear that. Yeah, you've clearly, obviously grown in life and in age over the years. This is very different. It's like reflective. I wrote almost dreamy quality in places,
wow,
which sounds very pretentious music critic of me, but
it doesn't, Danny, because that about sums it up. I mean, this album was quite interesting. I've got and have had material for 2 or 3 albums since the beginning of COVID. I guess it was about 2022. We'd had COVID, we'd had Brexit, all this stuff. And I got a bit flat and I wouldn't say depressed, but close to it. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go up into my home studio and I'm going to write some therapeutic music for me, just to sort my head out and just to get my head straight. And I found it flowed so easily because lots of the restrictive rules I'd kind of put there within my own compositions over the decades, they fell by the wayside, because when you're writing ambient inspired music, it's very different. You're not necessarily working to tempos or traditional key and chord progressions, and you can really mess about with stuff. So I started doing that and I thought, this is great. And I'd probably written about half the album within about 8 weeks, the root of the album. The rest of it took me almost 3 years, but it really was more from meditative self-fulfillment that I started writing the album. Then I realized that it was really dreamy, and it was really, and I liked it. I genuinely liked it. Just because I make music doesn't mean it's good. But yeah, and I also knew it was a prelude to what's coming next, because the next songs I'm going to release, they're absolute bangers. So this is a kind of gentle prelude to that.
All right, let's hear it. A little gentle warm up, a little bit different from the other things we heard so far. Sophia. Okay. You said, before we listened to that, you said it was like a COVID album. Promotionally, isn't 2025 way too late to be releasing a COVID album? Like, didn't everyone get there before you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was coming out of COVID, but I was coming out of a period in my life where I had some illnesses, and obviously life was very different for everyone, and it was just something I'd always wanted to do, is write ambient music, and I do meditate as well, so it made sense to write music that I felt that, not that I could necessarily meditate to, but took me somewhere else without actually having to push it hard with a beat. That track Sophia is probably my favourite one on the album. There's 3 tracks on the album. So there's Sophia, which is for my youngest daughter. She's Ella Sophia. There's Amanaki, which is for my eldest daughter, Amana. And there's Ramiel, who's my son. That's his middle name. So yeah, it was kind of also it was an album full of love and good feeling.
So no connection to the Bulgarian capital, because anyone who knows you and knows your usage of music from the Balkans and is going to think that this is going to be Bulgarian before they hear it, right?
Well, yeah, but obviously Sophia is a Greek word and means wise. So, and actually some of the vocal sounds, the vocal samples in the track, they've all been reversed and cut up, but they were Ukrainian. That was really interesting. But if I use samples, I'll make them unrecognizable, basically. So I reversed them and twisted them in so that changed the pitch and the speed, and they sounded like that. But there's something about that track. I really like it. It's just got a really nice feeling to it, and it is dreamy, and it's kind of mystical and a bit dubby as well.
Towards the end here, lest this get too narcissistic and solipsistic on your side. Now we're in 2026, new albums out, long career that's not nearly over, we hope. Who are some artists that you're now inspired by or touring with, for example, that are in this scene? That we'll obviously put all the links in the description, and we can put in a link for a friend as well if you have someone.
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk about that. So a good Israeli friend of mine, Doron, he was in a band called Gypsy, who were also on the Balkan scene, British-based, mainly Brits in the band. But Doron started up a label called Batov Records, and he started signing kind of under the radar. This is pre-7th of October, bringing in Israeli artists onto his label that were playing Mizrahi Arabic style music, basically, and even Greek music, and funking it up with this kind of 70s psychedelic Anatolian rock vibe without it being rock. So he started bringing in artists from over there, releasing everything on vinyl. And there's one band particularly called the Satellites, who are absolutely amazing. I mean, they're so good. And the other really successful band on the label are called Sababa 5. But the Satellites, I've become really good friends with Itamar, who's the main guy. Turns out he's a big Max Pashm fan, and I'm a big fan of his, so we're definitely going to have to do something. But so yeah, I'm really in awe of that whole label, everything that comes out on Batov, pretty much.
Wait, I can't believe I waited this long to ask this question. You do refer to Max Pashm in the third person, so the artist version of Max is a different person. Because I just listened to what's his name, Stuart Lee, on Louis Theroux's podcast, and he was very much saying like that. Oh no, that's something Stuart Lee, the comedian, might say on stage, but it's like a character you play. Will Max Pashm and you get into a fight over something? How bad has this become?
Back in the day, it could have been about the beer rider backstage. The band could have split up when I was solo through musical differences. Do you know what? At first, I was really quite uncomfortable. I'll tell you what passion means, because then you'll understand the title of the recent album. The three of us were trying to come up with a band name, and we got to 24 hours before the first show at the Club Energised I mentioned earlier in Brighton. And the bassist Matt just said, "How about Pashm?" And we went, "How do you spell that?" And he said, Pashm. We were like, "What does it mean? It sounds nice." And he said, "Well, it's Tibetan for fluffy underbelly of a mammal." I went, "Oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool." So that's how I became Max Pashm. Obviously, that one thing led to another. But And I'd always wanted to do something called Fluffy Underbelly. So when I'd started writing the recent album, it just seemed great to call it Sounds from the Fluffy Underbelly.
Himalayan words seem to be great album and band names because I don't know if this already exists nowadays, but about 10 years ago I went to a zoo and there was a Mish Me Taken. Do you know what that is?
Mish Me Taken.
Yeah,
Sounds painful.
exactly. And I thought if I write a book, if I ever need a pen name or a band name or an album name or anything, the Mish Me Taken that's it. And that's some kind of Himalayan sex move. No, animal.
Whoop, beep. I mean, but actually Pashm is a very famous fabric, pashmina. You know, it's kind of similar to cashmere, but so yeah, it's actually a certain type of goat from the Himalayas is a pashmina goat. And that's what we got on the front of the album. It had to be a pashmina goat, even though it was hand drawn.
Can you remind people where to find everything? We'll put some links in the description, but what is there? Instagram, Xtagram, what are they all called?
Yeah, Instagram, X, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, and all the other online portals, really. You can find my stuff or go to www.maxpashm.com and you'll find some links there if we're keeping up to date with it. Again, I think we'll get AI doing that now. But yeah, my stuff's all out there and there's a lot more to come. It's going to be a big year this year. I'm going to unleash some real strong tunes.
Any upcoming live gigs?
Yep. So I've got 2 in France next month. I am playing a private event near Bordeaux, between Toulouse and Bordeaux. And then there's a big Gypsy festival called Welcome to Sigani, which has been running a long time. And oh my goodness, they've got the absolute creme de la creme of the Gypsy bands, performers, Balkan Beat DJs. There's some great acts there. So that's going to be a great festival. That's I'm playing there on the 25th of April, but that's the 24th, 25th, 26th, maybe even the 27th, I believe, and that's up in the Pyrenees. So we've got that one. And then a couple of weeks later, very exciting, there's a new festival in the Netherlands called Falafel Pop. So I kind of fit that nicely with my falafel techno DJ set that I'm going to be taking there. And they are featuring a lot of really interesting bands that you could equate with Batov. Some are from Batov, but not all of them. And that's really kind of a rock, funk, 70s kind of fusion with that oriental vibe. So that's going to be a really interesting festival. And then
I was gonna call your music Oriental at one point, and then I thought you're not meant to use that word anymore. But
it's Asia Minor. I mean, it definitely is Asia Minor. I mean, most of it's modal. Even the Gypsy and the Balkan and the klezmer, obviously, you know, it might have ended up in Europe, but it certainly didn't start there. Yeah, I mean, I'd say, especially at this point in my career, I'm really interested in, because of my love of Greek music, I'm really interested in how that mixes with my own culture and ancient Hebrew music and what's coming out of the Middle East from many different countries. Just amazing music, whether it's from Turkey, Israel, or other countries in the Middle East. Really cool.
I told you privately that it's a crime that they didn't use for any of these big Middle Eastern shows like Fauda and Tehran on Netflix and Apple TV respectively, that they didn't use any of your stuff. It would have fit perfectly.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. In actual fact, that's kind of an avenue I've been slowly breaking into recently, is doing stuff for TV and libraries and film. So if there's anyone out there that needs that doing, you know where to come.
Yeah, and you do stuff on commission as well, right?
I do. I write. In the last few months, I've done 2 very long meditation compositions, which are very specific. So they use different frequencies. So I use the 432 kilohertz ancient tuning frequency and mix it with binaural beat frequencies. So immediately you're listening to music in a different context. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff outside of traditional kind of what people assume to be my kind of signature Max Pashm stuff. And that's becoming ever more prevalent. I'm doing more and more different things. I even sound designed for a company called Timber Harps last year and created a sound library for them. And yeah, just the music, I think you have to be really, unless you're a really huge artist, you have to be really open to diversify and spread your wings, which is great creatively. It's brilliant.
Yeah, you seem like you're in a good place as well. Speaking of gypsy festivals, before the goodbyes here, quick notes on my favorite song and your early favorite. You know, the more I listen, I'm sure it'll change. I'm sure it was Nothing Else Matters for everyone until they heard the early stuff, eh? Until they heard Master of Puppets.
Oh, stop.
Kiki Laki is a collaboration with a gypsy band, or where are they from?
Yeah, they were a gypsy, I think a gypsy trio, but a father and son, Polish gypsies. It was recorded in a church. Actually, no, it was rehearsed in a church in East London and recorded on a boat, which was my agent's office on the River Lee in London. I think we recorded it actually 2010. It sat there for a year or two. I just couldn't work out how to produce it. It was difficult, you know. And there were, even though the musicianship was brilliant, there were a lot of mistakes. So it was a real patch-up job, and eventually it came out like it did. And yeah, it's a nice song.
Yeah, you don't seem to love it as much as I do.
I should have mentioned that the Max Pashm Band are playing Stenning Festival in West Sussex on the 29th of May. And that's going to be a great show because we hardly ever play locally. I think the last time, the band and myself as DJ, we performed in over 27 countries to date. But I can count the number of shows we've done in the southeast of England, in this part of the southeast of England, in Sussex, on one hand. So that's going to be a big show, 29th May, Stenning Festival. Stenning.
Look forward to it. I might be there.
You better be. It's on Shabbos.
Yeah. Oh.
Don't tell our rabbi.
Speaking of Shabbos, and I hope the rabbi's listening, Pesach Sameach, and
yeah, Chag Sameach.
Also Happy Easter. They're coinciding this time, this year. They're at the same time, so Happy Easter as well.
Well, Happy Easter to everyone out there, and a big Yom Tov and Chag Sameach to the tribe and to the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure, Danny.
Parlate po puciella, ai cane volenza tecneleo, io ed che la mandir voi samela, io ed che la mandir tecneleo, che la che, ai so me cae, che la che, ai so me cae. Sugar terni ciuli, io ed che la mandi sugar moe, la crea cain a samu sumli, la creo saben in a summa cae, ci vediam parlate vo buciella, ai cane volenza te caleo, io ed che la mandir voi sabella, io ed che la mandir te caleo. Ai some ca